Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Hey, Sam, I got to tell you, I do a lot of hockey and I do a lot of podcasts and everything, and you guys have one of the best podcasts anywhere. It's knowledgeable, it's fun, and you do it right. So thank you for your time and for having me on the show.
Happy Devils Monday. This is the Let's Go Devils podcast, season 3, episode 38, titled Tribute to Mr. Devil. Yes, you know who that is. That is Ken Danico, a tribute to Mr. Devil, streaming live on the Let's Go Devil Podcast Network, on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter, Periscope, and Twitch. Powered by Nova Product Design from Primetime Radio, and now simulcasting on the Primetime Radio Network. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with Shorts Guy in our beautiful Primetime Radio virtual studio somewhere in beautiful New Jersey, as I'm still on Cloud 9. Maybe we're on Cloud 9, New Jersey, because what a podcast last night with the one and only Ken Danico.
I want to call Cloud 3 times 3 equals 9, because having Mr. Devil, the number 3, was awesome last night. It was a ton of fun. I hate to cut you off, but I had to say it.
Yeah, you know, we didn't get much to talk last night because Mr. Devil, Ken Danico himself, which, by the way, thank you, Ken, for making time for us on the Let's Go Devils podcast. It was unbelievable. We didn't. He just went. He went all heart. You know, pedal to the metal, 120%. And also, I'd like to thank his wife, Margaret, for setting him up, connecting us to our virtual studio, because without her, this would have never happened, because that was the tricky part. Otherwise, he would have been on by phone. But just to have him sit in with us talk about Devils hockey during a time where we all needed a break. And I think that is what he said, like for all of us, and I'm speaking for everybody, that was therapeutic because I completely forgot what was going on in the world yesterday.
And I mean, Sammy, you know me, like I love history, and just to hear the history of his, not only his career, but his career with our team, just to hear those small inside stories that only someone like him or someone on the inside would know, I think was awesome. That's what I loved, was just hearing all those. And I know he prefaced a lot of it by saying like, oh, I've said this a bunch of times, like a lot of that stuff I had never heard. So either I'm not paying attention to the right sources, or it just, he's said it and it hasn't been, that publicized. But hearing the history of our team like that, like that's really what you want. Like we really have one of the younger teams, relative to the rest of the league. And it's great to hear the history of our team like that. And he is part of the history of our team. He is our team. He is Mr. Devil.
He is one of, I'm going to use this analogy. He's one of our treasures to this organization, a living treasure, because what I felt, and I'm going to try to describe it to the audience about last night's interview with Ken Danico, those tuning in right now, what it felt as a fan, all of us, because I know there were 4 seats at the table, and then there's Ken Danico.
Yeah.
You fans watching yesterday would have loved to be in our seat. And we know that because when we started this whole Let's Go Devils podcast, and we get great guests that, oblige and take the time out to come and talk to us, we don't do this for our egos. We do this because we want to promote what's right about being a Devils fan. And I felt that yesterday when Ken Danico was talking to us. I felt emotionally why he's called Mr. Devil. Understand that when we do this podcast, it's nerve-wracking to send out emails or texts or make phone calls trying to get these notable guests on. Everybody's very busy. Everybody, we don't come with it, an agenda other than we just want to have a conversation with you, and you, the audience, is our online extension to that conversation where, yesterday was really hard to read off the comments because right now, I'm reading the comments right now in the Facebook Live group. Michael writes, Arlette can be a guest. She has been a guest numerous times on the podcast.
Not only has Arlette been a guest, Arlette is a friend of the podcast. She's
exactly
a friend of the podcast.
Exactly.
You know what, Sam? I'm going to have to say last night, we got to sit in the same place as all of our listeners, because the 4 of us that were there were merely just facilitating Ken Danico telling stories, and that's what it was. Like we got to take the place of listeners. That was more of Mr. Devil's podcast last night than the Let's Go Devils podcast, because we asked a question and he spoke, and he could have spoken for until midnight or 1 a.m. and we all, the 4 of us, would have listened, along with the rest of our listeners would have been tuning in. So we really were we were actually fans last night, which we don't get to do that very often. Like, we've gotten to know a couple guys, we've gotten to interview a bunch of people, which is, still to me to this day, and I know you share the same thing. So does Beer Baron and Scotty. We're interviewing, some of our heroes and legends of the game. We were merely fans last night, just listening to Ken Danico talk about our team like he did, and that was great.
And he lived it.
Oh, gosh,
when he was drafted, he told the whole story, and I've heard some of these stories before, but half of the stories I didn't even know. But he lived. Think about his career. being 18 years old in Western Canada back in the early 80s, not knowing even where New Jersey was. He didn't care because he knew that I have a chance to go to the NHL. And that kid had heart, spirit, that he had been always dreaming, working hard towards, carrying around a garbage can at 10 years old, thinking one day that's going to be me. That determination, that grit, just to get notice. And just because he worked hard, he got a little luck in there. A scout put his name on him.
Mm-hmm.
Drafted by New Jersey. And New Jersey
on the line for Kenny.
And the Devils didn't even have a team name at that point, right? So they were in transition to New Jersey, and then, and not to make the team the first year, but he took a lot of positives out of it. The dreadful years of the 80s, which, I kind of liken the Devils in a way where the 80s remind me of like the hair glam, the glam rock bands like Motley Crue and all that. It was just a fun time. We didn't really care if we were winning or losing, but yeah, of course we wanted to win and beat the crap out of our rivals. But that's what it felt like. And then Lou Lamoriello came in, and it was just like, okay,
complete culture shift.
Yeah, just let's be the NHL and beat the NHL versus just being in the NHL. And that transition and him talking about Lou, I mean, and when I first talked to Ken, I get a text out of nowhere about it, right? Yeah, that you'd be willing to come on. I'm thinking, okay, how about tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday? Okay, sure. Not doing anything. Like, I'm getting a text from a childhood idol, and then it's like, and then when I had to set him up, and I get that phone call, I'm like, do I answer? Of course I have to answer it. And talking to him, it's nerve-wracking. Nobody knows how nerve-wracking that is because it's Ken Danico. Like, you grew up watching him play and on TV.
But here's the other thing too. We're not professionals by any means. I mean,
no.
Just look at the way this podcast runs every single time. It's like a circus some nights. We prefer this thing from professionals. We're just fans, and we luck out, and we get to talk to some of these guys that we've looked up to and followed for a very long time. And you know what? And I'll go out there and say this: we've gotten very lucky that we can not only, we've interviewed some of these guys, but some of them we've been able to call friends, which blows my mind to this day that through this podcast we've the kid in me to think, I lucked out. I was in 7th grade, and I had tickets to Game 4 of the Cup Finals in '95. If the kid in me knew that I'd be able to call some former Devils and Stanley Cup champions, that I can refer to them as a friend, would have just blown my mind at the time. But we've been really lucky to do that, and having Ken Danico on last night was, that was just one of the one of the best that we've done, and we've interviewed some top people, within the Devils and league wide too. But to have Ken on last night, it was like Ken is what we all love about this team.
Oh, absolutely. And you felt it in your seat. And of course, behind the scenes, we're all texting each other, because Ken just, once the podcast started, he just went. And it was just like, whoa. And I'll tell you, were you intimidated when he came on around 8:55, 5 minutes before the podcast? Were you a little bit intimidated?
Yeah, the only other person that we've had on in the 3 seasons that would match his intensity is Cam Jansen.
That's exactly what I was about to say, because Cam Jansen, Go ahead.
I thought Cam was going to come through the phone and
That's
punch me in the face.
put yourself in my shoes, okay? It's like Cam Jansen's a nice guy, but again, in the back of your mind, psychologically, you're thinking Cam Jansen beating the crap out of you. So like when you try to when you try to get, you're on the phone, you're like, "Hi, this is Sam from the Let's Go Devils podcast. Is this Cam?" He's like, "Yo," and it's like, "Oh." You don't want to screw it up, and you're trying to patch him in, and you're like shaking because you know what this guy is capable of. And same way with Danico, but obviously both Cam and Dano are so nice. And then we talked a little bit, and what's been going on. But man, when he started out, he was just like boom, boom, boom,
right into
boom,
right into it.
Like the full, and as the podcast went on, do you know when I knew it was time to end the podcast? Because we already agreed behind the scenes we'd go to 1 a.m. if we could, but we didn't want to take up too much of his time. So it's a healthy balance, because one of the toughest things about producing this Let's Go Devils podcast was it always is every week is, when do you pull the plug and cut the guest off? Because you don't want to be rude. At the same time, you want to give them the platform, but at the same time, you don't want to, waste his or her time, whoever we have on. So that was going through my mind, and then I realized, what was the indicator to cut him off? When he was drinking his water bottle and it was starting to get to the end, and I'm like, okay, we got. Yeah, so it's like a life level, and it's like got to the 8th, towards the end of the bottle, and I'm like, you know what, we got to cut it off, because we could have gone all night long, and I thought, and I don't want to warm up, wear out our welcome and all that kind of stuff, but it was totally wild as he was talking, and then we asked some questions, and I wanted to always tell him, from my standpoint, that what it felt, and I can't describe the feeling. 2003 Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7,
at that game.
and waiting for those scratches. Because everybody was nervous, because you talk in the parking lot, you're tailgating, and everyone's like, I don't know if Dano's going to be in, bro. I mean, now you put him in, I don't know. I mean, that's what Keith the Cop was saying. It's like, yo, bro, I don't know if he's going to be in. I sure hope so. Maybe it's not his last year. I don't know, but he may be too slow. I don't know. And then it just skips his name, and man, did that crowd roar! And it wasn't a short roar; it was like a roar that we got. We got the emotional leader, the lifelong Devil, the heart and soul of the team. That was a confirmation, Shorts guy, that we were not going to lose tonight. You're not going to lose, because when you have Ken Danico in the lineup. Anybody remembers, when you have Ken Danico in the lineup, the 7th man in the stands at home, either it's Continental Airlines Arena or wherever, Brendan Byrne, you had that factor in the crowd. That night, the place was shaking. The place wanted the cup. The place wanted a dynasty. And everybody wanted to see Ken Danico go out as a Stanley Cup champion, which he did. And that's who was out on the ice. It was picture perfect. And also it was Grant Marshall's birthday that day, but I just want to throw that in there. Just a random fact. But yeah.
Another podcast.
Yeah. And you know what? You can tell, like, when he tells these stories, they never get old to him.
No,
he told stories that really meant a lot to him. And, it was kind of cool being in his presence virtually. But again, can't thank Ken enough, because, it took our minds off of things for those 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and all of a sudden, like I looked at the clock and it was 10 o'clock, and I'm like, where'd that hour go? It's just it flew by. Like the time flew by, and there's only been a couple podcasts where the time has flown by like that, and last night was absolutely one of them.
Well, I also felt that I felt proud to be a New Jersey Devil.
Totally.
Not that I never felt proud, but like now I know why I'm a Devils fan. After talking to him, because it's going through the trenches. It's about relationships. I always said that sometimes being with your friends at the games is better than the actual outcome. And you felt that. I felt like. Oh yeah, I mean there were some nights that we lose 7-0, but man, did we have hell of a time, making fun of the opposing team fans in the stands, So, it's like, like the lovable losers, whatever. But yeah, I mean, Michael writes, Stan Fischler stories could go on forever. That's somebody I would love to talk to on the podcast. We should really reach out to him again. Durango State, we had to cheer as loud as we could, at Game 7, as he's referring to. So on the Facebook Live, and
Sam, did I ever tell you about my story with that Game 7 in 2003? Of how why I did not have tickets.
Why is that?
I was young and dumb at the time. I mean, I guess now I'm just old and dumb, but I was young and dumb at the time. And when tickets went on sale for the Cup Finals, I went on Ticketmaster because, back then there was no resale, no easy resale, at least in 2003. So I punch it in. I'm like, oh, what tickets can I get? Tickets pop up. The only tickets that pop up were Game 7. They were the only tickets that popped up. And not understanding, and this is why I was dumb, not understanding the concept of what would happen if I bought the tickets and they didn't go that far, that I'd get a refund. I remember looking at the screen and going, nah, they'll never get there. And I clicked out of it and I didn't purchase. It's one of my biggest regrets in life is not buying those Game 7 tickets. To this day, I still regret that.
Yeah, I remember I was offered $2,200 cash for Game 6 against Colorado in the Meadowlands parking lot. And I told the guy, he's like, this is a lot of cash. And I told him, yeah, but being there with my friends, it's priceless. I'm sorry. I can't do it. Because thinking that could pay for next year's season tickets and next year's playoffs, right? Yeah, well, that game was a stinker. Jeez.
I know. I was there. I was at Game 6, man. And, there were so many games that you and I were at, and like all of our friends were at, in like different sections around the arena before we were all, it's the same thing. All my boys from the, going to soccer matches. Like we were at, before we all came together, we were at a bunch of matches, just like all over the place. Same thing with our guys. It's like we were all at these, key games. We just were not near each other until, what was it, 2005? After the lockout.
Yeah, after the lockout. Oh, do you remember tailgating after that lockout? Zach Parise's debut, Sidney Crosby's debut. I still have pictures. We left a mess in the Giant Stadium parking lot. That place was a dump. Oh my goodness. Durango Steve writes, work hard, take care of your family. That's what it meant to be a Devils fan. Yes, you are correct.
Yep.
Durango. And and you got to think with Kenny Danico, he wears 3 rings on his finger. It could have been 5. Yep. It could have been 5 had they gotten through. Should have been. Should have been. The whole Ray Bork storyline that still pisses me off to this day. I mean, I didn't want to ruin the interview and ask Ken, do you think 2001 was rigged? But, I still think it is. I have no proof. That tells you I'm a Homer fan, just like everyone else, just like 2012. Why couldn't the refs call icing so it could have negated Bernier's penalty, right?
Yeah, but you know what though? We're not going to get on 2012 because you know what? The lasting memory I have of 2012, it's kind of what we were talking about before, is Game 5 when we were all tailgating in the parking lot. You know, and just I did a double sports day that day, and tailgating in the parking lot, and that was the last. As far as I'm concerned, that was the last game of the season because we won.
Yep.
You know, and again, it was all of us out in the parking lot, and that was it.
And you know what? And of course, the title of this podcast is a tribute to Mr. Devil, Ken Danico. You know what? That type of person with that type of career is so rare in sports. The loyalty factor, or, you know, on the brink of potentially get traded, but I don't think Lou would have ever traded Danico. And then the whole retirement story where try to make it easier on Lou. You know, he could have played one more year, but Lou didn't want. But thank you for retiring. You know, but you want to go out on top. You want to go out on top. The lasting memory that to have that type of story career, is just, you can't explain. Hello, David Decker. He just chimed in on the Facebook Live.
I saw that. I liked his post there.
Yeah, I like it too, gents. So, but yeah, I mean, that's Mr. Devil. Thank you, Ken Danico. We were not expecting. I mean, when we do our pre-production meetings, honestly, it's not even scripted. We talk about what we think we're going to talk about, but there's no like show rundown. Although I did do the monologue, you know, when I plug, you know, everything, I did have to write it down because I figured if I didn't, I would screw it up because you have Ken Danico like right front and center on your looking at you on your screen on your monitor, and it's like, yeah. So I'm like here looking at it, and I'm like, you know, all powered by Nova product design from Primetime Radio. I'm like, check. Okay, I got it all, and you know, and then I just handed it over to Ken, and then Beer Baron had one question, and Beer Baron's like, wow, I got him started.
I don't know, it's just it was a ton of fun, and you know, kind of getting on what you were saying, Sam, you know, with our pre-production stuff, it's serious when we all sign on for the first time, and then the seriousness goes away for about 15 minutes, and then it gets serious with about 30 seconds left to live. Other than that, it's pretty much just an extension of this show. So there's kind of lifting the curtain a little bit for the fans. It's pretty much the pre and post production is pretty much what you see, except you know, we don't we curse a little bit more in the pre and post production. That's about
oh my
it.
goodness! To tell you the truth, the post production talk is like wild.
We make fun of each other.
And then Beer Baron afterwards, you know, he was telling us about his studio setup. That was funny. That was really funny when he's sending us pictures of his studio setup, like what it really looked like. That was funny. And then we found out that his wife is very multi-talented. Let's just say that.
Very much so. In a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. Like she can like build stuff. Like Beer Baron, what the hell are you? What are you doing?
Oh, like, it's the post production is the epitome of this podcast. Just four guys just hanging out at a bar, just ripping on each other, and it just gets. It's kind of like at Last Call when it goes downhill fast, and that's what happens in post production.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, you know, we should say now four guys at a bar because now Scotty is joined on, is now a regular, but it's like four guys at a bar, and you know, it's like Last Call. You know, like when the bartender is like, all right, last call, and you're just getting your still talking, but you know that you got to leave. But like that is like probably the best part of the night before you leave.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's trying to get things out. Yeah. So, but want to thank everybody joining in our conversation and tribute to Mr. Devil. Sam and Shorts Guy tried to get Scott Stevens on. Jason, we just let it happen. We just build towards it. We don't have like a spreadsheet of people that we aim for. As a matter of fact, it's almost like how we do it. The secret of the sauce, honestly, we just build relationships. We just talk to people, and we come with no agenda. Yeah, I mean, I would love to get Marty Brodeur on, but maybe it's not our time. It took us how long to get Ken Danico on? But really, I never really solicited Danico till just recently. Pretty much like Friday afternoon.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it kind of lucks out because we're kind of we are absolutely a we're definitely a more relaxed podcast where it's just a conversation between friends, and that's really what we are, and that's why it works so well, and that's why Ken Danico was able to come on last night and just kind of just go with stories. I can only imagine that would be like, what it would be like hanging out with him just at home or at someone's place. It's just like, or running to him after a game, like if you get talking to him, like he just has stories, and that's the best part. We get these guys to open up, which is so cool. Oh yeah, and
I think what was even more surprising was I threw the idea to Ken. Hey, I see you doing Zoom a lot. That's hot right now. Do you want to come on, like, video style versus the phone? And I didn't know how he would react. He's like, hey, sure. That's pretty much what he said. Sure. So it's like, all right. We better get her.
Let's not forget that our first video guest was Moose last week.
Yes. Well, actually, technically it was Pete the organist. Pete the organist was on. Yes, Pete the organist was on, and then we're like
our retro podcast. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. Where we went back in time in 2012. We're like, be like, oh yeah, that I can't wait to. Kovalchuk is a lifelong devil. Let me tell you. But yeah, that was really cool. So it started with Pete the organist, and then he had a couple questions, and they gave me some ideas, and then Rebecca worked the first time around when we locked her into our virtual studio, and then it went to Danico. You see how it evolved? Like, it's not like we planned it. It just happened.
But all three of them are hopefully we can call Ken Danico a friend of the podcast soon. But Moose and Pete absolutely are they friends of the podcast. We've had Pete on. Pete may be the most. He may now have taken the record of most appearances from Grant Marshall. It is possible that Pete might have the most appearances. So
Kevin Clark is up there.
Clark too. So
Kevin Clark.
The top three in appearance numbers are Pete, Kevin Clark, and Grant Marshall. And I can tell you what, I know Grant's competitive. He's going to want to come on and get that crown again.
Yeah, Arlette's been on multiple times. Also, don't forget Steve Cangelosi has been on a couple times. We had Erica Walker on once.
Has been on twice.
So he's a friend of the podcast. He's a friend of the podcast. Chico Resch
been on 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, Chico could go on. Can you imagine if we had both Chico and Danico on as like kind of like? This is what we'd be doing the whole time. Whole time we'd be like that.
we would be listeners to our own podcast.
Yeah.
And Sam, that would mean that I would finally listen to one of our podcasts. Sammy and I were joking about this before. I hate my voice, and I've never listened to a podcast after we've done it. Never once have I listened to a podcast. So at that point, I would finally become. I felt partially like a listener last night, but if we had Kenny and Chico on at the same time, I would finally listen to a podcast.
It'd be freaking awesome. Or one day we should take both of them out to dinner. Mezzanotte style.
We're supposed to do Chico Eats. Durango Steve has said Chico Eats. He would pay for it.
Yeah.
Did
he? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We were actually supposed to do something down in Bahama Breeze before the Devils Panthers game, but remember the league had put a pause to the season. But
yeah.
But there will be a time where we're going to eat with Chico, both on and off the air. That's going to be funny.
Sam, I'll tell you what. The first home game back, I tell you what, we are going to have the biggest party.
Absolutely.
At PJ Ryan's. We are going to have the biggest party just because we're back and we want to be there and we cannot wait to be there. We will have the biggest party once we all come back.
Yeah, there's not going to be much social distancing that day.
No way. It's going to be a
lot of high fives.
It's going to be a mess.
I think we should spill the podcast out into the streets as well.
That's what I was thinking. We just have the podcast out in the street.
Yeah.
I can't. I know we all have to be safe right now, but Sammy, I cannot wait until the day where we're all able to be out and with all of our friends and our friends that we call family. I just cannot wait till we can all be there together at a game and just be around everyone again.
Yeah. Yeah. But till then, we'll try to entertain you.
Oh, of course we'll try to entertain between now and then. I'm just saying, I am so looking forward to those good days that are ahead, because you know what? Everything will come back to normal and we will be together again at a Devils game, being loud and having beverages together and celebrating a Devils victory once again.
Absolutely. And Dano's positive talk gave me hope.
Oh my gosh, so good.
He's like Mr. Positivity. I love it. It's almost like I'm talking to Beer Baron sometimes, because he's like the most positive guy. Yeah. Unless he wants to like crack you in the face. And what about Durango Steve? I had him, call in and ask his question, but what about that whole Ty Domi thing? That was awesome. That was awesome.
Cool. And you know what? That's one of those things that you get with this podcast is not only do you get to ask your questions virtually, but sometimes you get to call in and ask your questions to some of your favorite players. So that's why we're the most commented Devils podcast out there.
No, you got to say it right. We're the most commented Devils podcast in the history of New Jersey Devils podcasts. Craig Best writes, the Stoke Dano was good for different jerseys. How do you all feel about it? Hey, I like his attitude towards innovation. If it's innovative, original, it'll be awesome. It'll be awesome.
I want to, you know what? There was that stretch of time in the late 90s, early 2000s when everyone had some kind of wild third jersey. Bring it back, man.
Yeah.
Bring those third jerseys back. Like the ugly Ducks third jersey with that goalie duck jumping through the ice. The thing was atrocious, but it was awesome. The Islanders Fisherman logo is a great third jersey. Like, there's just so many great third jersey ideas, and it's just a matter of being creative. And not for nothing, for the teams, it's money. It's like we'll all buy it. That's the thing.
Yeah. Are you hearing that, New Jersey Devils marketing team? Are you hearing that? Just let Beer Baron design it.
Make a black jersey with red trim all day.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Well, we want to thank everybody joining us live tonight as our tribute to Mr. Devil, how cool he is now that we got to know him. If he comes back on once more, he'll be a friend of the podcast officially.
That's all you need to do is be on the podcast twice and you're a friend.
Yeah. Then we'll stop bothering you. Just to say you're a friend of the podcast. We'll also have to send him and his wife some T-shirts. I'll talk to you about that off air. But I want to thank everybody joining in.
But wait, before we stop, we failed to mention one of the other true friends of the podcast, and that is Mr. Bruce Driver.
Oh yeah, I love Bruce, and don't forget Nick Villano, State of the Fan Address every Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, because we've had Bryce Salvador multiple times.
He's
had
a friend of the State of the Fan Address, at least.
Yeah. He doesn't know us knuckleheads, right?
Yeah, right.
Or is what the governor says, jackasses. That's what we are, jackasses.
Oh man, we all live for press conferences nowadays.
Yeah, 4 jackasses at a bar. That's what we are.
You're not wrong, Sam. You're not wrong.
Hey, I can say that because it's not really a curse word. You know why? Because it's actually in the Webster Dictionary. Check it out.
And it's an animal. It is.
Yeah, it's just a stupid donkey. That's all it is. That's all it is. And if you want to know what the A on Short Guy's jersey, you'll figure it out.
Ask me at the bar. Ask me at the bar.
All right, thank you for everybody joining in. Until next time, Devils fans, let's go Devils.